No more 9 to 5, what a way to make a living. Crypto is on the rise, making that dough in the crypto paradigm. Watching it go, buying low, selling high. Riding the wave, I'm here to stay, living in the digital age. No banks, no fees, just decentralized. It's crypto paradise. Ooh. No banks, no fees.
Alrighty, surfers, let's kick this thing off. Happy Tuesday. We're back with another daily live stream. My name is Crypto Amaru. Of course, Crypto Hitman is with us as always. We got a lot to cover today, gang. The title of today's live stream is You Are Not Bullish Enough. And that's just a fact. None of us are bullish enough. I don't think any of us are really accepting what's happening presently in the crypto space and what is going to be happening in the future. So we're going to cover a lot of stories, talk about the adoption, the institutional buy-ins, and the very fact that Tom Lee is out there touting a $60,000 ETH price prediction. When that happens, I don't know, but I think it's in the cards. I do think it's in the cards for the next few years here. So yeah, very excited to be here, guys. All right, so why don't we first start with some chart analysis? As always, I saw yesterday, okay, a little weakness. That was early this morning, and then boom, seems like we rebounded on ETH, now above 3,800 again. Bitcoin, I think, around 118K. Things are looking good. Every time there's a little minor move down, it's like, boom, we just rebound right back up. So it just feels like we're in bull market phase here, and I'm loving it.
Yeah, a couple things there. First of all, when I said $22,035 ETH, if Bitcoin goes to 244,000 by the end of the year, I was looked at like I was crazy. Now Tom Lee's probably going to be all over CNBC and prediction 60,000 ETH. It's funny how that works. You know who you are and what they take serious, right? That's 3 times higher than my prediction. Anyways. The other thing is make sure to hit that like, share, and subscribe button and leave a comment in the comment section below, whether you're on YouTube or Twitter, for your chance to win a $10 daily live show giveaway. Ask us a question, leave a comment, leave a wallet address. $10 per live show will be going out. Start participating, start helping the algorithm. And we're getting like 700, 1,000, 1,200 viewers on these live shows, and only a handful of retweets, only a handful of comments. Stop being shy and get active. We're not asking for super chats, just free comments, free questions, and let's try to give you that alpha. Well, I guess let's pull up some charts. I mean, I'm fighting everything in my body to just skip everything and pull up the pulse chain chart, because everything we talked about just went to new highs over the past couple days. But we'll start with Bitcoin and ETH here. We'll keep it simple. We'll go ahead and do that. But we've been telling you to get the pulse chain, and it just keeps ripping and roaring. Well, what do you know? Bitcoin continues to consolidate. This hasn't been bad. If Ethereum continues to outperform, all coins can outperform, and then it would be nice if Bitcoin just slowly creeps up to 125 and beyond, and that way it doesn't slow down Ethereum and our alts. But this is what we were talking about yesterday. This red candle of panic, that was one individual from Galaxy Digital Investments selling $9 billion worth of Bitcoin in the matter of 12 hours. Down, and within 12 hours, right back up. That shows you the thick liquidity of Bitcoin, the strength of Bitcoin, and the demand of Bitcoin that is ongoing. Because if that happened, even a cycle ago, we would have dropped 45%. That's the truth, and that is just absolutely wild to see. But nothing exciting happening on Bitcoin. We still think Bitcoin works higher. Major support down where that 9 billion sell was at 115. And, of course, this uptrend line around 113,000 Bitcoin. Ethereum, we have this green line here. It wanted to break out a little bit of a dip, and now it's showing strength again. Now, what's interesting here is if you look here, if we zoom in, look what this did. This last run-up hit our target, down 5%, minor new high, tried to get you to panic, and then explosion. Well, look at this one. Big explosion, down 10%, minor new high, trying to get you to panic. Now do we explode to that 42.35 target level? I don't know. History doesn't always repeat itself, but it often rhymes. This is a 5% drop in a 5-day consolidation. This was a 10% drop in a 10-day consolidation. We could be off to the races, folks. And if that is any indicator of what is happening for your altcoins like Floki that we talk about on here, BNB, Solana, they're all going to be ripping and roaring. And before I leave TradingView and let Ian talk about the next topic, I don't know. PTGC, yet a new high, up 400% off the lows. I don't know what's going on. Pulse chain, all green candles, new high, off the low. I mean, wow. We read you a short story, a bedtime story yesterday about Richard Hart warning you. Do you think he's deploying capital or not, Ian? What do you got? What do you think's going on here?
Give it up for Richard Hart. Pumping our bags. Yeah, I think that tweet, honestly, I mean, that man can move markets. If you have that many followers, if you're that much of an influencer, you've been in the space for as long as he has, built numerous products that have done extremely well, Hex, Pulse Chain, etc. When you start bull posting, especially when liquidity is not that thick, there's not a lot of sellers left, the inevitable happens. So Richard Hart out there doing his thing, and I can't wait for him to be fully unshackled, get that Interpol case fully resolved, and then we'll see him really go off to the race. I think because that was just a little, hint. I think it was coming, a little enigmatic sort of tweet. He likes to do these sort of we need to parse the words and figure out what he means, this and that. I think there's going to come a time when it becomes blatantly obvious that he's full bore with this real world marketing campaign, when people start getting sent letters in the mail about Hex and Pulse Chain. I think it's going to be blatantly obvious when he starts deploying hundreds of millions of dollars and sending it across the bridge from ETH into Pulse Chain. And then I think the market's going to have no choice but to start listing PLS and those blue chip assets on the major centralized exchanges. The media companies will have to cover its success, and before you know it, it's going to be a fully ingratiated and accepted part of the industry, and should be a top 25 chain, I think, when it's all said and done, maybe even higher. We'll see where it goes. But yeah, so exciting for Pulse. I love what Bitcoin's doing here. Just circling back to Bitcoin real quick, because it's just consolidating. It's really just chilling here around $118,000, $120,000. But this is kind of what we need for alts to run a bit, right? And we've seen that. So Bitcoin, I'm loving this consolidation. I just hope it, let's just have it chill for a while like this. Let's just day after day, trading within a tight range, nothing too exciting going on. The attention shifted elsewhere. I am loving this. Bitcoin's going to move higher at some point. I have no doubt in my mind. But this is just this wonderful moment in time. It doesn't happen often, frankly, where Bitcoin, after having gone on a huge run, consolidating, and money and attention is flowing into alts. So let's count our lucky stars. Enjoy these moments here. Hopefully you guys were positioned. Hopefully you're getting positioned. Feels like more and more people are entering the markets every day. This is the time, guys. This is the beginning of the alt season. You get positioned, and then you harvest your gains, in 3 to 6, 9 months from now, when things are going absolutely bananas. But yeah, I'm just loving what Bitcoin's doing. And then let's circle back to ETH real quick, because look at this chart. I mean, what a beautiful looking chart. And I have been reading that there is some overhead resistance around that 4K level. And that makes sense, right? There's a psychological sort of barrier there. Those whole numbers, you probably have some sellers there. But we're gonna break through that. We're gonna break through the 4,000. We got to break through a lot of levels to get to the 60,000 now, don't we? So we'll get there. We'll get to 4,000. We'll get to 4,500. We'll get to all-time highs. And once it's at 5,000, I think that's when we're really off to the races, right? Then it's pure price discovery. It's pure FOMO. It's just emotions taking over at that point. And there's not going to be a lot of supply left in the hands of the weak. Not after what Tom Lee's doing, not after what all these institutions have been doing. And it seems like every single day a new player is coming online to buy billions worth of ETH, right? Last week was Ether Machine, and I'm reading now new ones coming out. Maybe they're smaller, but doesn't really matter. This narrative isn't going anywhere. And ETH to 60,000. I mean, I know it sounds completely insane. But apparently that's only like, what, an 18x or something like that for 20x from where we're at now, which would still leave it, I think, around the size of what presently is NVIDIA's market cap. Of course, the biggest of all the stocks. But who's to say ETH can't hit it, and then NVIDIA at that time sure will be 6 trillion or 8 trillion. Everything goes higher over time. So Yeah, hold on your hats, hold on your bags. This is it, guys. This is the moment we've been waiting for.
Yeah, I mean, this has been playing out perfectly. Been following along. We've had the long-standing 42.35 target to break out of this downtrend line when it happened. You can see us extend. We had the target of 3,000 to 3,100. That's exactly where we consolidated for 5 days and had a 5% drawdown. And then the measured move for this inverse head and shoulders here has been right here. And look at the target timing. You know, the timing on the chart isn't always what's most important, but we drew this box up here between July 23rd into September. We got the move here at the end of August for the arrow, and it looks like, you know, it could happen imminently if there's any kind of catalyst or 0.25% rate cut or SBET buys another, you know, tranche of Ethereum. It's only a few $100s away to get up into these target zones and right on time, right on cue, and a perfect measure moves. And this right here would be new highs for the cycle high, not the new all-time high, but the new high for the cycle. When everybody was getting excited up here, that would be a breakout above that, and then you kind of have that gap until 5,000, and you can start celebrating new all-time highs, blue skies, no resistance, price discovery. Who knows what can happen? Now, official price target for this cycle isn't $22,035, but if my Bitcoin prediction of 244,000 does get hit, and history repeats itself on the correlation between the two assets, that would be the target for Ethereum. And it doesn't sound so crazy when Tom Lee's talking about, you know, complete bull market would be Ethereum 60,000 if everything, you know, went perfectly and we all rode over the rainbow together.
I'm trying to pull up the article here. Can you see my screen, or is this not working here?
I cannot see your screen.
I don't know why it's not working, but any event, there's.
Try it now without me sharing mine.
Oh yeah, that might have something to do with it. But yeah, you know, this is how it always happens, right? When we're in the midst of a bear market, you know, the talking heads are out there saying it's going to go to zero. You know, it's failing, crypto's dead, whatever. Of course, when things start to run, you get these pie in the sky predictions. But the fact of the matter is, this $60,000 price prediction was just based on a kind of a standard computation that Wall Street firms do to determine the implied value of an asset. Excuse me. No, I'm pressing the wrong button here. You know, $60,000. I know it sounds completely insane. I know it does, but let's just see here. You know, they do it. You know, it's one of those things where I think you sort of almost can speak. You start to speak it into existence, and you start to bull post that into existence. So here it is, Bitmine doing their long form tweet. The implied value of ETH after doing this computation is $60,000. That would give that's based on, I guess, the value of the network itself and the value of the transactions that are running across the network. They do some sort of calculations here. A nice little 18x returns from here. So whether it hits $60,000, you know, this cycle is unlikely. Next cycle doesn't really matter. The title of today's stream is "You Are Not Bullish Enough," because I guarantee that if we went out there on the streets or out there on crypto Twitter for that matter and started to poll people, where do you think ETH is going to hit this cycle? My guess is majority of people are still thinking, oh man, we'd be lucky to get back to 4,800. You know, my top is 5,000. My top is, and that's just crazy to me. That's just crazy. Look at where Bitcoin is, $120,000. It's a top 5 asset in the world. ETH is lagging behind in a huge way, but we know there comes a moment in time in these bull cycles when ETH catches up, and then everyone starts talking about the flippening. Everyone starts talking about how ETH is going to become, you know, the next Bitcoin, whatever. We haven't even come close to that phase yet. So I just think everyone is kind of in that, you know, we use that term bear market PTSD a lot. I think that's still permeating the crypto space, and it's going to take some time, but I love to see guys like Tom Lee, his huge microphone, going out there and bull posting like this, man. I just love it, and it makes me think, like, all right, hold on to this shit. Hold on to this shit. Don't just sell it for pennies. It's worth more than you think. It's going to be worth a lot more than it is today in 5 years from now. So just hold on your hats, enjoy the ride, and let's see, $60,000 ETH. Let's see if we get there.
Yeah, and I mean, I love, like, so with gold and silver, they always use like the 16-to-1 ratio because that's kind of like how it's mined. 16x more silver is mined versus gold on a yearly basis, and they kind of like that ratio to try to find pegging a price. So we'll see what kind of ratio people start talking about with ETH and Bitcoin. I always liked, and where we saw it last year was just sub 10-to-1. If Bitcoin was 100,000, Ethereum's 10,000. And maybe we get back towards that ratio as this cycle progresses. And that would imply a current Ethereum price target of $12,000 if Bitcoin did nothing. So that's kind of how they're getting these. Remember, also Thomas Lee is saying 1 million Bitcoin at some point. So they're saying a million Bitcoin, 60,000 ETH. That's not even quite your 10-to-1. That's a 6-to-1 ratio. So it's not out of the realm of possibilities. And if you get more and more of these major holders holding ETH, then people are like, well, there's still an infinite supply. Yes, it's usually deflationary when action is going on, but these holders of ETH are also staking and sucking up all of that inflation and holding it for the long term. So that's how this becomes a reality, and we've talked about it a lot, and I have a little short walk and talk video coming out later today where you guys quickly forget how quickly morale and momentum can shift in crypto in particular. Really, it happens in any markets. There's FOMO everywhere. But in Bitcoin and crypto, morale and momentum can shift on a dime. And because it's 7 days a week, 24/7 hours a day, all over the globe, things happen rapidly. You don't get a week to react, 2 weeks to react like you do in traditional markets. You don't get a Friday night close and get to think on it and sleep on it all weekend. That doesn't happen here, and that's how the steam engine gets rolling in crypto, and that's where you can be left behind. There's a lot of people on Pulse Chain. I was showing these cup and handles, and once they were getting close to completion, they said, screw it, I'm selling. Great 40% call, Nick, 50% call, Nick. Look, Pulse Chain's down to the right. I'll get a dip. You had a 1-day dip of 5%, and now everything just went to highs again. Now, is this a local top? Maybe. But now you got to sit there and be like, well, is this a local top? Am I going to be able to buy it back cheaper? Now I need a 15% dip to even get back my tokens. That's what happens in bull markets. That's how you get left behind. So if you have high conviction plays, don't go all in, go all out. Don't do that. Skim some profits here and there. Or a lot of the assets we get you in produce passive income for holding, reflection rewards. So if you really want to take profits, sell the rewards you've earned and not the principal, because you will get left behind. You're gonna fight. You're gonna be like, why? I had a million surf and I sold, and now I got 200,000 surf, and I'm not gonna get a big enough dip to ever get a million surf back again. That's what can happen. So keep that in mind. Things move quick in crypto, and even if you just follow normal trajectories, the remainder of this year could be absolutely parabolic, and that means you have 4-5 months of just, every time you sell, you got a really hard pressed time to get it back cheaper unless you time it right before one of the inevitable 30% dips happens.
It's very hard to trade altcoins effectively. They're unpredictable. They move up and down fast. I haven't met many people who are really good at trading in and out of altcoins. It's very few and far between, right? Most people are not good at it because it's hard, right? And you got to be plugged into the charts all day. You got to be studying these things all day. You probably can't, you don't have time to have a normal job. Like, you have to be a full-time trader if you want to be good at it. So I just don't think most people should even go down that path. Most people, I think, buy and hold, understand the cycles, try to time when you buy something on the lows, try to sell it when we're in the midst of a full-blown mania. Everyone's talking about they're going to get rich forever. Bitcoin smashing all-time highs, ETH well above all-time highs. Okay, then you can start to think to take profits. But just trading in and out of stuff right now, I mean, it's not, look, if you're good at it, you're good at it. Most people are not. That's why I've turned over all of my trading, sort of that side of my portfolio, to the Frontier Fund, who we actually are going to have Taha, one of the founders of the Frontier Fund, on as a guest on the show later today. So we'll be hearing from him. But for me, trading, look, yeah, like you said, exactly, it happens exactly as you said, right? Okay. My certain coin is languishing. This thing's running. I'm going to sell this, move into that. You move over there. Probably it starts to dump. Maybe you get another move 5-10% higher. Probably not, because you probably missed the pump. And then the thing you sold out of, then that thing starts to run because whales are now buying in because it looks like the weak hands are out. And it's exactly what happened with Surf over the weekend, right? We had a big whale sell. Probably was bored. Probably, nothing's happening. Whatever. He moves into whatever else. Maybe he does well. Maybe he doesn't. And then of course, 2 days later, Surf is up like 60%. So I just, trading these things, man, it's tough. Try to find ones that you like. Hold on. We're not saying never sell. We're not saying never take profits. But there's moments in time when you've taken the guesswork out of it because everything is going bananas. You've done it 10 times. You held on you held on it for 6 months. You've done it 10 times. okay, now I think it's safe to take those profits and then rotate. But, trying to do those, trying to, scalp 5, 10, 20%. I know, Nick, you're pretty good at it. People following your trading group probably are doing quite well, but I
But
think for the
even
average Joe out
even
there, it's just tough.
even with that, we're trading like macro patterns. Like for example, the cup and handle on Pulse Chain was an implied 75% gainer. We're not trading for 20. We're looking at the full picture, 75% rally, and we got it. Teddy Bear, you're looking for a 65% cup and handle breakout, not 5%. For PTGC, you're looking for major milestones. That's a 350% rally off the low. You think it's easy to hold 350% rallies off the low before you take anything off the table? No. And the breakout for Surf is just underway. You mentioned it. We had a big whale sell out. Now Surf is looking like it's breaking out of a bullish falling wedge, and it's up 76% off the low that whale made. So did they get into PTGC and they're up 50%? And okay, 6 and 1/2 dozen of another. Maybe, hopefully they did, because at least that's still pumping our bag. But you sell out of something that you thought you had good conviction in, you did your due diligence on, it's paying you passive income, it's a micro cap gem, the team's active, you make the low, and now it's 76% higher, and just getting started. So, that's what can happen. Trading for 5 and 10% is not something that really makes sense unless you're really good and you're doing leverage. Like you said, the Frontier Fund round 2 is coming up. That is something they do very well. If you want to take 5K, 10K, 20K your portfolio, give it to them, and they do 30-day trading periods, and they produce real profits. I use it as just an income source. You can do that. We can help you do it, but you need to hold 400,000 Surf or more to get allocation into that. And why is that? This is one of the perks for Surf holders, and there's a limited amount of funds that the fund can actually take in and manage, a limited amount of users that the fund wants to manage. So this is kind of the gatekeeping on that fund. 400,000 Surf or more, you can get in the Frontier Fund, let them do 3x leverage trading on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. Let them be actively trading that while we keep doing our thing and we keep looking for bigger macro moves, 60% gainers, 5x gainers, 20x gainers, and just kind of the macro overview of what's going on in crypto here on Crypto Paradise.
Yeah, for me, I don't have the time to monitor the charts. It takes a toll on you emotionally. You get a lot of trades wrong. You start to feel bad. Then you're chasing things. It's not easy. We've all been there, right? So outsourcing to professionals who have a system in place. They have a track record of success. They've generated 30% net returns month over month for the round 1 investors. Actually, that stretches back even prior to that. Before this round opened, there was kind of a test round that I was in that also did similar gains. 30% a month. I mean, net to you, even after their fees, is an incredible outcome. That's going to be pretty hard to replicate unless you are truly in the trenches and monitoring this stuff all day and very good at it. So, look, to me, I'm a buy and hold guy, especially with my core stuff, man. The Bitcoin, the Ethereum. I don't know if it's going to hit 60 grand in the next 5 years, but if it hits 22,000, that's life-changing gains for most people who are holding a decent chunk of it, which I recommend that everyone grab a bag of these the blue chip assets within crypto. The one group of people that apparently are not grabbing any crypto. This is an interesting. Here, I'll pull this up real quick. So there's I guess she works with MicroStrategy. She knows Michael Saylor. Let me pull up this tweet here. Big influencer. I guess she's out there on Wall Street, hanging out with the New York, finance bros. Natalie Brunell. She's this is an interesting tweet. I thought we should bring up here. Let's see. I can share the screen. Share the screen, folks.
Sorry, folks. Ian is a boomer. He's
Yeah, I'm
moving
really
a little
not
slow here.
good at this stuff.
He's a hunt and peck typer.
This is me, right? It's just I'm like, yeah, this is how I text. This is how I text, by the way. So she's out here in New York talking to finance bros. Do you invest in Bitcoin? No. And they have every excuse under the book, right? It's too volatile, too risky, it's not real, Nvidia's better, blah blah blah. And then I think the last comment might be the truest. I'm too late. I think that's what a lot of people think when it comes to investing in crypto and Bitcoin. Is I'm too late. I've seen this in the media for a long time. I faded it at 3,000. I faded it at 10. I faded it at 20. So the ship has sailed. And maybe look, if you were trying to make a 10x on your Bitcoin investment in a couple of years, maybe the ship has sailed. But as a part of a diversified portfolio, it absolutely has not sailed. The thing that still has massive upside, which he neglects to mention, is Ethereum, right? Okay, you missed Bitcoin 120K, but you know that Ethereum's still lower presently than it was in 2021, right? Like that's the conversation I think they need to be having. Oh, Bitcoin, you don't like that Bitcoin can't produce any passive income for you? Well, you can stake ETH and earn 3% annual yield paid out in Ethereum. Did you know that? Right. So I think there's just this mindset amongst people who are not in the space yet.
Yeah,
And it's kind
let's
of like,
let's uh let's scroll up and kind of go through these, and I'll tell you a real world story. Because for those of you who don't know, I worked for an institutional financial advisor as a performance analyst for like 7 years. Survived two acquisitions of that company, and I worked with a lot of we call each other schleppers. We all got hired around the same time. All did a little bit different jobs, worked in the cubicles, moved up to the offices, and survived acquisitions. And if you know anything with acquisitions, every time they happen, like 50% of the staff gets cut. But our core group, I guess we were underpaid for what we were producing, and we kept surviving. And even to this day, some of them still stay with that company or move to a different company in a similar role. And I was the one who kind of got out, said, fuck the 9 to 5. I'm taking a risk. And although I miss the 6-figure salary and there's more ups and downs here doing what I'm doing, and I got to do some other entrepreneurial stuff, a lot of those guys, they were there in 2017 when I started going live. I worked 9 to 5. I went to Todd's. We did a live show for another hour and a half. We went to dinner. We looked at some chicks, and we talked about Bitcoin. And they're like, "How are you doing it? Why are you doing it? Bitcoin doesn't make sense." They're the guys who took their CFA exams and their Kaya exams and all these things. And I'm like, I don't want to go to more school. I got a bachelor degree. I got a master's degree. I did the high school diploma. I don't need any more schooling. These guys are still going to schooling, not doing it. There has to be a better alternative. And to this day, they still bring up questions of what's going on with crypto. But very few of them own any meaningful amount of Bitcoin or Ethereum. And when they ask me for questions, I told them about Coinbase at $45. And I think half of them took the trade. It's at $400. I just told them about SBET sub $10. Only one of them took the trade. So he's in there bragging, happy-go-lucky, and everybody else is like, well, Nick, explain this Ethereum strategic reserve to me. It just doesn't make sense. What is MNAV? What is going on? They just can't comprehend it because in the world they live in, they are programmed by the studies that they do that the 60-40 portfolio is what you want. 60% stocks, 40% bonds, put them in the index, let it sit there for 40 years. That's what they learn. That's what they're programmed to preach, and that's what they tell their clients because that might not be best for the clients, but it's best for the company to keep the AUM for a long period of time and keep the people paying their fees. And then when they go to retire, there's a guaranteed at least a nest egg because stock market goes up 5 to 10% a year. So that is why it's hard for them to deprogram their brain from their 9 to 5 to when they get home and realizing they don't have to do what they preach because the corporate world is ingraining in their head what they need to tell the clients so that the corporation can make the most amount of money. That's why it's hard for these people to take the leap. Also, these are individuals who are very successful in education and in their salary. They're all making 6 figures. They think they're smart. They think they're financially literate. For them you're a little bit narcissistic. That's just the nature of the beast. So for you to admit that you missed something or that you're wrong or that you want to get in later than your friend Billy Bob who barely passed high school and was the high school quarterback is very hard for them to do. And many of them will miss the whole boat. They'll become the next phase of Peter Schiff's as crypto and blockchain advances into the future. And that's just the nature of the beast. All you can do is if you have those friends, do what Ian did. Well, did you know you're still early on ETH and you can earn yield? Try to help them. Because their narcissistic side isn't going to let it happen, and it's going to be really hard to deprogram all the education that they've been through. These people, when you go work there, you had a bachelor's, I had a master's, then they want you to do the CFA, which is 3 tests, then they want you to do the Kaya, which is 2 tests. Each one of those tests takes like a year to prep for. You are perpetually learning and getting ingrained by what the corporation and corporate finance, safe finance, wants to shove in your brain. And those designations are not updating with the times. It's going to take several years for that to happen. So, the Ponzi scheme thing is played out. That's 2016. It's not a company with cash flows and product. That's played out. It's digital gold. Might a video outperform Bitcoin? No, it didn't. It's too volatile to be a currency. It doesn't need to be a currency. It's digital gold now. That's gone. That's an old narrative. It's too much energy. The energy that Bitcoin uses is far less than the modern financial banking system. Look it up. Who created it? Nobody even knows. That's why it's great. You can't do anything with Bitcoin. You can go spend Bitcoin at nearly any store now that accepts Square cards. Go try it. And I'm too late. Bitcoin's going to $1 million. So, I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. And just, keep grinding. You're here. And those people will just get left behind and be replaced.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. A lot of folks can't admit they were wrong. Okay, I knew about it early. I didn't buy in then. I'm not getting in now because I'm quote too late. And they'll just come up with every excuse on the book to justify that, right? To make themselves not feel bad for making a mistake. But you're not too early. That's really the take-home message. And if you feel, okay, Bitcoin, all right, I need to do 100x. Well, okay, Bitcoin, the ship may sail on 100x. But Ethereum is sitting there, man. And if Tom Lee's even half right, we still got a 10x ahead of us. So I'm not too worried about these guys. I think there's just going to be a segment of the population that never accepts Bitcoin and crypto. In the financial industry, yes, part of it, a niche part of it is coming around to it. It's a slow moving ship. Most of the industry, it's going to take a long, long time for them to fully embrace it, but it will happen. It absolutely will happen, right? So there will be late comers. You guys are still early here listening to Crypto Paradise. I think one thing, one takeaway from this, as sort of from an investor standpoint, that I walk away with is you got to have some humility. You have to say, you know what, I was wrong on something. New information came about. My old self was wrong. Yes, I thought it was a Ponzi scheme. I thought it was just for drug dealing. But things changed. I was wrong, and now it's an accepted asset in the world of financial markets. So have some humility as an investor. This applies whether you're investing in Bitcoin or investing in alts, right? Okay, this sector didn't work out, but this one's hot now, so okay, I was wrong, but I'm moving over here. Or this team, I loved it. These guys, they were great, and now they're shit in the bed and they're not doing the right thing, so I'm going to move off it. You have to be flexible. You have to have some humility to say, you know what, I was wrong. New information is here now, and I'm going to do something different. And some people are good at that, some people are not. But to me, it's really coming down to the psychology of these things. These are excuses. These are front-facing excuses that people give, but really it's, like you said, the narcissism, the protecting my ego. I can't be wrong. We're all wrong. I'm wrong multiple times a day, and it's okay to admit that. So, some people left behind. But that's what I love about crypto, right? It's that great equalizer. It's that asset that anyone in the world, you could be a farmer from some forgotten countries, from some, far off place, or you could be, master of the universe, Wall Street guy pulling in millions a year, but it's all equal. 24/7 markets, fully accessible, information about the asset classes everywhere on the internet. You can listen to shows like Crypto Paradise to get, further insights and alpha, etc. It is a great, wonderful equalizer. So it's not a gate-kept thing. It's not a Wall Street thing. It's really for everyone, and that needs to be embraced. I think that fact needs to be embraced.
I guess, do we want to go over a couple charts, guys? What do we got going on? Crypto over here says, how are you guys? Great stream. Well, shout out for tuning in. Hopefully we're helping you. And if you have any other questions or want us to look at any charts, let us know. Hopefully you're owning some of the assets we do, because, wow, they are doing well. We ran through some of these yesterday, and we gave you some more buys on some of them yesterday, even though they're way up, and hopefully you followed, because many of them are green. So let's run through the list over here.
Before you do that, I just want to remind crypto and anyone else who's watching, head over to the YouTube. Write a comment, write a question, throw your ERC20 wallet address in there. We want to give away money. We love giving away money. We gave away $700,000 in surf tokens. We love giving it away. So we're just saying, hey, drop a question, drop your wallet. You'll earn $10 in surf, and we'll have a fun conversation. So don't forget to do that. Crypto and anyone else who's watching. Oh, head over to the YouTube, though. It doesn't work on Twitter for whatever reason. So, all right, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but want to remind people, get engaged.
Sounds good. PDI, this is the paganing, one of the biggest communities on Pulse Chain now. Although I'm not fully involved with the PDI narrative, wasn't a big guy on this. Why this is important is because there is a ton of holders there, there is a ton of liquidity there, and there is a ton of volume there. So if in fact that PDI does head towards $1, that pushes Pulse Chain much higher, and assets that are paired with PDI much higher. PTGC has like 100,000 in liquidity here. The DAO of Surf actually voted to add their first liquidity pool with DAI. We probably have somewhere around $3,000 or $4,000 in liquidity with PDI. So hey, we're rooting for you guys. We're not big paganing guys, But Somni gave me a shout out talking about my Gengar and my Pikachu back here. So I'll give him a shout out, and hopefully you get those nipples pegged to $1 because that will help the overall chain. And it is doing pretty well off the lows here as well. Dose still sitting at 765,000 market cap. Love what they're doing. We're in at 100,000. Dubcat at 1.3 million. Love what they're doing. We're in that at 300,000. EMID up 10% today at $1.22. We're in that at 49 cents, and it pays passive income. Remember, you can farm with EMIT with Surf or many other assets, or you can just solo stake EMIT to earn PDI, something like 123 or 125% APR. So I like seeing rally there because Crypto Paradise owns EMIT as part of its treasury, so that is awesome. Fuck 9 to 5 still going through a consolidation period, right around 4 million market cap, still basing off the previous high, and hopefully they can continue to consolidate like we've been saying, and then do their next campaign and send that thing towards 10 million and beyond. We got, what else we got here? Most, this is a meme coin that apparently Richard Hart created himself. Who knows if that's actually true, but $41 million market cap. Surf does have a pretty decent size liquidity pool with this. I think somewhere around 10,000 market cap, or 10,000, and it was right around these levels. So if most can keep this roundabout and going, maybe it makes itself a cup and handle and goes higher. That's going to help drag Surf higher. This produces quite a bit of volume, and it produces a couple $100 in volume daily for the Surf token and the Surf token holders. So can't complain there. We got PTGC absolutely ripping. 8,200 up 15% today. Went to a minor new high today, consolidating a bit. They are burning like $10,000 or $20,000 worth of this token in a day. Because remember, they have a token tax system very similar to Surf. But when you're playing with 170, 200,000 volume a day, that's a meaningful amount of fees that are being earned that can be used for LPs, burns, and reflection rewards. So massive, massive move here. Hopefully you've been following along. We walked you through this step by step as the breakout was occurring. And the upside target is still higher.
We have a great piece of content dropping hopefully today, maybe tomorrow, where we interviewed the PTGC team. Awesome guys, really smart founder. And they go through the ins and outs of the, their token tax ecosystem and how you came up with it. And, it's pretty compelling stuff. I do think, Surf itself is kind of that ultra undervalued sort of next PTGC type vibe, but of course you have the front-facing marketing, the stuff that we do. So maybe you can pull up the Surf chart and we can take a look at that. But what are we sitting at, like 1.7 mil presently?
Looks like 1.7 mil if you don't count the burnt tokens, and if you count the burnt tokens, you're at 1.74 million market cap. This is the falling bullish wedge. Obviously we launched on here 11K market cap. It mooned, had this consolidation, and with with Pulse Chain strength amongst others, you got this falling wedge here, and you can see you got rejected, a little bit of a drop, and now we're breaking out. So this is a really good bullish chart here, and hopefully we can get some follow through. Need the help of Pulse Chain, need the help of spreading the word on Surf and getting some more microcap holders here. But this is an amazing chart, and you can see this blue line. I didn't think it was going to happen this quick. I thought consolidation, breakout, retest, and then explosion. You had a little bit of consolidation, breakout, retest, and now hopefully we can continue to work higher and sideways. Remember, sideways in volume isn't bad on Surf because it allows the protocol to buy and burn more tokens for the cheap. It allows the holders to earn more tokens for the cheap in reflections. But obviously, everybody loves to see green candles. It doesn't look like much, but that is a 77% move off the low in a couple of days. And when you're talking about Bitcoin, this could be a year of gains happening in a couple of days. Obviously, you can't put near as much money into it, but that's how microcaps and small caps work. The microcap becomes a small cap, the small cap becomes a mid cap, and the mid cap becomes a large cap. Same story that PTGC saw, and PTGC now is knocking on the door of the top 200 in all of crypto. Had a very similar chart. I want you to go back in history. It takes time for the token tax system to build momentum, to fuel itself, to get the burns, to get deflationary, and to get the believers and understanders. But once it happens, momentum takes off, and the token economics do the rest of the work, and you continue to put in higher and higher floors. So great to see there for the Surf token.
Well, who also put in work on Surf? I just want to give a quick shout out to the DAO members who are taking full advantage of the benefits of being within the DAO. There's many benefits for being in the DAO. Obviously, you get the early alpha, the 10x calls, discounts on the retreats, free trips to Tulum, Mexico, all those wonderful things. But one of the reasons why Surf is running right now is we have a number of DAO members taking advantage of the fact that if, as a DAO member, they refer someone into Surf who then buys 200,000 or more tokens and then joins the DAO, that referring DAO member gets a 10% bonus sent to them in Surf. Now, a lot of guys, I'm loving what I'm seeing actually, because a lot of you guys are saying, you know what, I'm not going to take that 10%. I'm actually going to give it to my buddy who ended up buying in. And so we had a number of whales joining, guys who bought like 500,000 Surf, 200,000, 400,000, like big numbers, right? And by the way, after the stream, we will be sending out rewards to all the folks who bought over the weekend. So people are taking full advantage of the 10% referral fee, and that's not stopping. That's not going anywhere. We did some calculation yesterday. Like, all right, we have enough tokens for this. We have enough tokens for this to persist for the life of the project, it seems. So especially as the market cap grows, right, and people aren't buying quite as many tokens to enter the DAO. But in any event, this is really a testament to you guys for referring people to Surf and Crypto Paradise. So thank you for that. All right, we have a couple of questions, and look, an address. Someone's getting paid. Someone's getting paid Surf tokens today after this live stream. Crypto asks, what would be the best percentage to have as a balanced portfolio between cores, alt, layer 2s, and memes? Cheers.
Ian muted himself, so this is a tough one. Everybody, even in my Discord, patreon.com/learncrypto, I always say everybody's a little different. If you are kind of a risk-averse person, more like Todd Butterfield, you're going to be much heavier in Bitcoin in the large cap assets and much smaller in the altcoins. If you're more aggressive and you're trying to make big gains, you're going to have way less large caps, but you're going to be more aggressive in some of the calls we make on this channel. So you got to first decide your risk parameter. But in every portfolio, yes, you should have large caps, and then you should have your altcoin plays. So that's a tough one to say. I think with meme coins, you need to find cult meme coins or utility meme coins or high conviction. And really, they shouldn't make up that much of your portfolio if you're looking to be here for multi-cycle, because those are kind of high flyers, relying on narratives and relying on the cult-like communities to give you long-term gains, which normally isn't the case. They're usually flash in the pan. Maybe you get one cycle out of them. There's very rare that meme coins are turned into Doge or SHIB or Floki and live multi-cycles. So keep that in mind. Now is the time, I believe. Look for good due diligence. Look for good token economics that can earn you some passive income. That way you feel good riding the green candles up and down because you know you're earning yield on those assets. And on Pulse Chain, that's PTGC, that's Surf, that's UFO, that's even PLSX, that's some of these farm tokens. On other networks, you can still do that. Floki, you can stake to earn yield, but it's a meme coin, right? Ethereum, you can stake to earn yield. BNB, you can stake to earn yield. So I think you need to focus on these really good token economic plays that are focusing on deflationary of their token economy and are allowing you to be incentivized to hold over the long term with the bulkier portfolio.
Yeah, I echo pretty much all those sentiments. Sorry, the cleaners came and interrupted my flow for a minute there. But I think it depends, not just on your risk tolerance, but what's the size of your capital you're working with. If you only have a couple $1,000s, well, I guess you can buy some Bitcoin and Ethereum, and you probably should still have a little bit anyway, no matter what. But if you're only working with a couple grand and you're trying to turn that into something meaningful over a cycle or two, you have to take greater degrees of risk. I think going on your own and just going into the trenches without any kind of guidance, maybe following like random, Twitter KOLs or, whatever your buddy aped into. I don't know. I don't think that's a very effective way to survive in this industry, because this industry is somewhat about survival, particularly in the bear markets. You'll often get wrecked if you try to figure out on your own. Trust me, and take it from a guy who, in the first 6 months of being in the altcoin game, that's what I was doing, and absolutely did get wrecked. So I would try to align yourself with guys who are experienced. There's many different groups, right? Crypto Paradise is just one of them. There's many different groups with really experienced leaders who have actually your interests in mind. Fortunately, there's many that don't. There's many that will just dump on your head, etc. But to follow a community or someone who's kind of been in the trenches for a long time, seen what works, seen what doesn't, doing some due diligence, perhaps on behalf of the group, like how Crypto Paradise operates. I think that's how you're going to be able to navigate this if you're relatively new to crypto. But yeah, if you're just like, you know, out there on your own, it's going to be very tough. I think it depends ultimately on the size of your portfolio. If you already have 100 grand, it's a lot about capital preservation, maybe growing it slowly over time. Bitcoin, Ethereum, even the big L2s. I don't know. I'm skeptical. If you look at Coin Market, Coin Gecko, 5 or 10, so just say 3 or 4 years, not even 5 or 10 years, like 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, the top 10 was largely different outside of like Ethereum and Bitcoin. So even the big caps shift and change. They're not guaranteed to survive many cycles. Even these like big L2s, like Arbitrum, for example. Like I don't know if that's going to be here in 3 years. It might, probably will, but will it have increased in value? That's pretty hard to say. So I kind of stay away from these big caps that are within like the top 50 because I don't trust them nearly. Just like I don't trust a lot of the memes out there. So you got to find out what works for you. But I think at the end of the day, aligning yourself with a community, with a trading group, with a call group, with influencers, whatever, that know what they're doing, been in the trenches, and have your interests in mind, and those interests are aligned. I think that's how you're going to survive rather than trying to do anything on your own.
Hex says, "Bro, Nick, talk about the $1 PLS call. Bro, is it really possible?" Well, this isn't really my call, but Liberty Swap, they're active, and they replied to somebody, a big crypto influencer, and said, turning $10 into $244,818 in the future. That's wild. And then you're like, what are they referring to? You look at their bridge here. If you bridge in the USDC from Base Network into PLS on Pulse Chain, that's the ratio, implying a $1 price target of Pulse Chain. Now, does that happen? I don't know. But is a 1 penny price target of Pulse Chain very possible this cycle? Yes. And that is many X's higher than we are currently. I think that's over 100X, actually. So that's why I keep saying this is the most undervalued layer 1 in all of crypto. And you have an opportunity to where you could buy the next Ethereum, the Ethereum killer, right now. That was the narrative back in the day. That's how you got into BNB and watched it do 100x. That's how you got into Polygon and did all the farming. That's how you got into Arbitrum, and now it's kind of stalled, but it's doing its thing. And I also heard IOHK, Charles Hoskinson, talking yesterday, and I didn't realize it. And it's kind of crazy when you think about it. ADA has outperformed Bitcoin by 282%. If you swapped all your Bitcoin to invest in the ADA, ICO, IPO, token launch, whatever they called it back then, you outperformed Bitcoin by 282%, not including passive yield. That's pretty wild too. That shows you the upside possibilities from these layer 1s and these layer 2s. Why is that? Because there's a lot more utility there. They're starting at much lower market caps. You're taking on more risk. They offer passive yield. Now, the hard thing is to actually hold on to the good assets on those chains for the long period of time and not chase each and every shiny object that gets launched on the network. So that's why you can keep that in mind. Liberty Swap Finance here, bookmarking this $1 price target for PLS. But did you know that Ethereum and ADA and these have outperformed even Bitcoin? Pretty wild to think about.
Yeah, I did not know that. That's very surprising because ADA as a network has very little meaningful adoption as far as I can tell, and as far as the on-chain data would suggest. But Charles Hoskin done a great job hyping up his chain, created a wonderful narrative around it that investors have bought into. He's obviously a co-founder of Ethereum, that of course helps when you're out there shilling your own coin. I'm not a fan of ADA personally. That's one of those that sort of baffles you a little bit as to how well it's done. But crypto's baffling at times. Often the price doesn't really reflect the fundamentals, which can be frustrating for maybe Wall Street guys, like we talked about earlier. XRP is a great example of that too. But I don't know if PLS is ever gonna hit $1. By the way, shout out to Hex, multiple days joining the live stream. Thank you, sir, and thank you for engaging and asking questions. I don't know if PLS is going to hit $1. I don't even know if Pulse Chain is going to be the Ethereum killer. I don't know if that narrative is really resonating anymore or making sense, because Ethereum now, I think, is the chain that is getting adopted by Wall Street and mainstream financial institutions. And I don't think Pulse Chain or even BNB or ADA or they're none going to compete with that. So what I think we need the question we asking is, what's the next Solana? What's the next degen chain? What's the next retail chain? Right? BNB didn't do well because Wall Street bought it. BNB did well because retail bought it. Right? Because retail built applications onto the people wanted to use and did use PancakeSwap, et cetera, et cetera. So what's the next retail chain that's going to do very well? And I absolutely think it could be Pulse Chain. The thing that concerns me though is that when you talk to the average degen within crypto, we just had this conversation. I just had this it wasn't a conversation. It was a back and forth for a second with a community member in a project called YakDAO, which had initially launched on Arbitrum and is now relaunching on Pulse Chain. And the individual was like, "Why Pulse Chain? It's dead." And I didn't have time to go into all the reasons it's not dead, but that's the sort of prevailing sentiment that we're fighting against when talking about Pulse Chain. Is just that preconceived notion of, oh, Pulse Chain, it's dead. When really it's pretty vibrant. Really, there's a lot of activity on it. Really, there's a lot of projects and builders on it. Really, there's a lot of benevolent things going on, as Nick likes to say. So, was it a little concerning that an individual thought Arbitrum was a better place to launch the token than Pulse Chain? And I don't think Arbitrum has a lot of retail interest whatsoever right now. But I don't know if we need to be looking for the next Ethereum killer in terms of like financial institution adoption or Wall Street adoption. We need to be looking for what's the next Solana. And I think
look at these. I haven't looked at market caps in a while. These are wild. BNB $113 billion market cap. Woo. Solana $100 billion. Cardano $28 billion. Now this is why it makes sense that Charles is like, hey, Cardano is undervalued. Well, shit. A 4x in Cardano just achieves where Solana is right now. Maybe Cardano is undervalued. Like you said, not many people using it over the years with Cardano. Very insulated community over there. It's not EVM compatible. But the one thing I will say about Cardano is he has ties to Trump. But what they are working on now is being the settlement layer for Bitcoin DeFi. We know that there was that little hype cycle of Bitcoin DeFi. Nothing really came of it. They're still working on it. But apparently, IOHK, the developer suite over at Cardano, has been working diligently to be a regulatory compliant settlement layer for Bitcoin DeFi moving forward. Now, is that going to happen? What's the timeline? I don't know. But if that happens, that could jumpstart Cardano utilization, because there's a lot of Bitcoin whales who then, whether they like it or not, would be using Cardano tech, which is obviously going to be benefiting ADA as the settlement asset for that scaling solution. Also, he was hinting at a major airdrop. I think it's called like Midnight. Don't quote me on this. I got to do more research. But he hinted that the Midnight airdrop, this is another suite of products, will be launched before the end of 2025. And there will be an airdrop for all ADA token holders. And that will be something like 50% of the total Midnight supply will be going to the airdrop. And he also slipped up and said that Midnight very well could launch at a fully complete $10 billion market cap, similar to what we saw with like Pengu and Pump, where they launched around a $4 billion market cap. So I don't know, little alpha there. I'm not a Cardano guy. I own very little. I think I have some stake, but I might need to take a circle back because I just stumbled upon that video at midnight last night. I listened in, and that's how the topic's finding its way to the live show today.
Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, buying into projects that are going to receive an airdrop is a very tried and true way to make some temporary gains, no doubt about it, right? Like, people will load up on ADA if they think they're going to get a free airdrop of a massive new project. So, I don't think that's a bad strategy. Whether then Cardano outperforms, Ethereum, for example, over a multi-year period, I'm highly skeptical of that. But, you can make gains chasing these airdrops. You can make gains if you're a little bit strategic about it. Understand, okay, this isn't a long-term play necessarily. I'll buy in now. It's going to pump 30, 40%. I'll get out then. I'll get my airdrop, win-win, on to the next. I don't think that's a bad strategy whatsoever. I just don't know. I mean, a lot of these chains, we're in the trenches with projects looking to deploy their tokens, to build their tech onto particular chains. And you always have these conversations, okay, what chain to build on? What should we, launch our token on? And I've never heard anyone say I should do Cardano, right? It's always like BNB, Ethereum, Solana. At one time, Base was sort of under consideration, and of course Pulse Chain. We talked a lot of projects that want to build on Pulse Chain, but really nothing much on Cardano. I think Cardano is more just led by Charles. he kind of dictates what's going to happen, and it's not really dependent on like retail or builders so much. It's just like, is he bull posting and doing his thing on his YouTube show? So to each their own. Crypto's a very interesting place, and there's something for everyone, right? Like it goes back to that risk tolerance sort of question, right? Like for me, I don't like speculating on like what Charles Haas is going to do. I believe in Ethereum. I believe that it is going to get adopted. I believe it's undervalued, so I have my money over there. I believe in Bitcoin. I don't believe necessarily these other things. Yes, they'll do well. Yeah, I'm sure I've been proven wrong. But for me, like if my mindset's always multi-year, it's like I need to believe in it. I need to actually believe in the team and the builders and the product. Or if it's a low cap, just okay, I can do a quick like 5 or 10x on this. This is going to be a few weeks or a few month type play, and just accept it for what it is. Maybe it was a meme, maybe it was a low cap, maybe some DeFi play. Doesn't matter, but there's a different mindset I think depending on the asset and the time horizon. But yeah, man, plenty of ways to make money in this space. I just ADA has never been my cup of tea. I just always thought it was a bit fugazi.
Yeah, and I want to show up a little bit more data here because we're talking about comparing and market capitalizations and stuff. If you come over here, gopulse.com, you can see the market capitalization if you don't include the OA. And people are like, what's the OA? If you guys don't know, what Richard Hart likes to do is have very low float, meaning a lot of the tokens are just sitting in a dead wallet. Richard Hart has access to it. He's had access to the Hex wallet for years. It did a 10,000x. Not a single token was sold. He owns like 90% of the supply. So if you don't include his wallet, the total market cap of PLS is 735 million. And we were just looking at these other networks have 10 billion, 28 billion, 100 billion valuations. If you include his OA, you're sitting at like a 6 billion. And we're just looking at networks that have 10 billion, 20 billion, 100 billion valuations. If we look at PLSX, 683 million market cap, not including the OA. If you included 4.9 billion, think of this as Uniswap, except all the fees are going towards this asset. Since launch, it's only been out. This is the first cycle. DEX, very low volume. People are starting to onboard. You can see because the price action is going up. It's already burned 7.5% of its total supply. And even in low volume days, it's burning something like $25,000 worth of fiat USDC buying and burning PLSX. I saw in the last 24 hours it burnt $42,000. This is why I say if you're buying one of these blue chips, I like PLSX because I think the buy and burn fuels this price just like BNB was fueled. And every single trade that happens on that DEX is buying and burning this token. 45,000 a day when very few people are even using Pulse Chain. What happens if Pulse Chain even gets to like SUI levels? Or Solana, or whatever else is a mid-tier Avalanche, I don't know, Base. The volumes would be significantly higher, and these burns accelerate quickly. And the fact that this is cycle 1 and already burned 7.5% of the supply is pretty wild. So I think the point of this is we were just looking at other networks and what their market capitalization is, and you can kind of determine what kind of upside objectives and possibilities there are for Pulse Chain and their blue chips as well. And these are built much more benevolent than many other tokens. Every token's in circulating supply. There isn't new tokens from VC or investors coming into supply like there is on SUI. And also everything that is on Pulse Chain is buying and burning itself. It isn't going to a dev team. It isn't going to a founder. They're already billionaires. So they just said, screw it, buy and burn everything. Let it all deflate and let the price go up and to the right over the next decade. That's what they're doing, and we'll see how it plays out.
One thing I like to look at too when evaluating change is you can go on DeFi Llama and see all the on-chain activity. Maybe we can pull that up in a bit, but yeah, I mean, look, what are you here for, right? Are you here for short, quick gainers? Are you here for 5 years? That's really what it comes down to. And Pulse Chain to me is extremely undervalued. That's really what it comes down to. And I think this is a good moment to segue over to some surf talk because we have individuals, including, I think I know who this is, someone called a wolf asking us to talk about surf. Crypto as well jumping in here. So I'd like to understand something, Crypto asks. Surf gives surf reflections for holding in the wallet. Can you explain a bit about surf? So yeah, absolutely. One of the key elements or features of the surf token, and this is embedded and encoded into the token smart contract, is the fact that with every transaction, the user pays a 5% either buy tax if it's buy, 5% sell tax if it's a sell, and these fees are then sort of apportioned in different ways. 1% of that 5%, right, goes to buying back surf and distributing it to everyone who is already holding surf. So if you just hold surf, right, and you're holding it for week, 2 weeks, months, you will see the balance of your surf holdings increase. Like I look at it, I look at it on my wallets all the time. 50 surf here, 100 here. It's all dependent on the volume, right? It's depending on the taxes and the volume. But yes, absolutely, you're getting essentially daily airdrops of surf just for holding surf, and that's just one feature of the token tax ecosystem that surf's built on. Oh, you're muted.
It's part of that incentivization to get you to hold, and it's all deflationary reward. So this isn't like last cycle. A lot of projects still do it where you're staking, you lock up your tokens and you earn tokens, but those tokens are coming into supply. These rewards, although they're not a guaranteed APR, fluctuate based on volume, and they're deflationary staking rewards because it's only happening if somebody buys or sells and pays that tax. And then you get your prorated share of that tax because you are a holder. The rest of it, as you can see, gets broken up. 0.5% goes to adding Surf XLP. Another 0.5% goes to buying and burning Surf. 0.5% goes to adding to the PLS LP. 1% goes to a no expectation wallet, which is burned up until this date and used it for marketing and overhead of Crypto Paradise. And then 1.5% goes to the DAO. So if you have 200,000 Surf or more, another perk is you get to vote on what the major balance that builds up over there gets used for. Up until this point, the DAO is voted 100% of the time to use half of the money to buy Surf, half of the money to buy another Pulse Chain asset and add to liquidity pools. The most recent ads were, I think we got a 3,000 LP with PDI, a 3,000 LP with Bear, but you can look at the LP list and we're paired with like 20 different assets on Pulse Chain and trying to get those liquidity pools bigger. Number one, to have more LP for traders, but number two, the bigger we get those, the more arbitrage that people can play and bots will play, and that fuels volume, which fuels all of these token taxes and the income generation for the Surf token holders.
Yeah, wonderfully said. And Wolfie wants us to talk about the tweet that had gone out. I think he spent some time crunching numbers. Shout out to someone called the Wolf for helping us out with this awesome tweet. But basically, it goes into the sort of the track record, the numbers. 3 months in, what is it? Maybe you can see the numbers maybe a little bit better. 2.24% of supply has been burned. 4.5% supply has been redistributed to existing Surf token holders. We have $350,000 in liquidity across, like you said, 20 different LP pairs. And so extrapolating this out, you get kind of consistent volume from the first 3 months to the next 12 months, we're going to have a tremendous amount burnt, tons of tokens, 18% redistributed to token holders, and we will have $1.4 million in liquidity at that time. So you kind of let the machine do its thing. We're obviously out here promoting it. We got people in the DAO telling their friends and family about it, earning their 10% referral bonus. So we're not slowing down. There's a lot coming to, I think, even accelerate all that. But that's kind of some baseline figures that Wolfie put together, and we then made this tweet. So shout out to Wolfie. Thank you for that, my friend. Anything you want to elaborate on there, Nick, on those numbers?
No, I mean, I think this isn't extrapolating for the next 12 months. This is extrapolating for just 1 year in total. So this would be extrapolating it for another 8 months. That's it, not even 12. Just saying, hey, after a year, these will be the numbers. Also, this is the numbers based on following the same trend. And although you had a big spike in burns and everything right at launch because there were a lot of volume, it's been pretty slow as far as volume is concerned because Pulse Chain hasn't been doing much and actually went down and right to the price. So if Pulse Chain activity stays like it is and keeps increasing like we're projecting, then these numbers can get very big very fast because remember, the more on-chain network activity means the more volume potential for Surf, the more price appreciation potential for Surf, the more potential users that could be interacting with this contract address here. So this is a very conservative prediction, and even these numbers are absolutely massive. If in 8 more months we burn 9% of the supply and redistribute 18% to holders, those are big numbers, especially when we're talking about a project right now that's sitting at sub $2 million market cap. So I'm excited for the future. I also know Crypto Paradise is going to juice these new and DeFi yield to buy and burn Surf tokens and create volume with that as well. So exciting times ahead for Surf. And remember, there was a total supply of 100 million Surf, and right now it's getting close to 97 million is all that's left only after 3 months of launch. So exciting times ahead. Shout out to Wolfie for doing these numbers here. And we got it out here on the official Crypto Paradise Twitter and even gave him a shout out. So if you guys do this stuff, make sure to tag Crypto Paradise. Maybe we'll give you a retweet. Maybe we'll give you a quote tweet. Or maybe we'll use it as our own tweet and give you a shout out to kind of reward you for being active. And remember, every one of you, whether you got 10 followers, 100 followers, whatever, if you get this kind of content created, you're only pumping your own bags because people will see it, people will use it, and people will latch onto it. And the self-fulfilling prophecy of surfing the green candles is coming true.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say that this is something that we all collectively need to make happen, right? Obviously, myself, Nick, we perhaps bear the lion's share of helping pump everyone's bags, but the community is an integral part of it, right? So we love to see this kind of community created content. Shout out to Wolfie. Get out there and raid. Join these live streams, retweet. Tell your friends and family about it. We're all in this together, right? It's a true community. So for those numbers to hit, it's going to take a collective effort. And I will say one other thing too. This did not take into account that not one but two projects are launching in August, both of which will be launching, of course, on PulseChain, and have their own token integrated into the Surf token. By that I mean a part of their fees, their token tax, are going to actually be for buying back and burning Surf token. So if those projects do well and those projects get good volume, which I think that they likely will, that's going to juice things even more. And my guess is they're not going to be the last projects that do this, right? There's going to be many projects want to launch on PulseChain with the help of Surf and Crypto Paradise. And a part of that deal is going to be having those tokens programmed to buy and burn Surf. So it's just starting. It's just starting out. I'm getting some FOMO myself. I'm feeling like I need to load up on some more Surf for my own bags.
Yeah, and the other thing with those projects is they'll also be helping out some of the, we give homage to PTGC a lot because they were kind of the first mover on the chain, and X Protocol because they helped launch and they're doing well. And those projects will also be buying and burning those two assets and having initial liquidity pools. And why does that fuel Surf even more? Well, because Surf has liquidity pools there. So it's just this big web, this big integration of, hey, buy and burn Surf. You're buying, burning other assets that we own and that are paired with Surf and can really fuel PulseChain as an ecosystem and fuel Surf moving forward. And, always pay homage to those other relationships and those other builders who were here first and coming up with some of these amazing opportunities and solutions on chain. And I guess the last thing before we hop off here, we didn't mention it. We kind of focused on Bitcoin, ETH, and altcoins, and we had a lot of comments to this video. But I made this tweet. We talked about it yesterday. There's only a 5% chance that the Fed cuts rates tomorrow. What are your opinions if that happens or if it doesn't? I said, therefore, if no rate cut happens, the market barely blinks. The market isn't expecting a rate cut tomorrow. But if any kind of rate cut does happen tomorrow, you probably get volatility and fireworks because you'll catch everybody off guard. Quantitative easing is kind of underway, and debt becomes cheaper. Obviously, it'll just be a first stepping stone, but I think that would be a very dovish look for the future of interest rates here in America.
Yeah, we'll be watching the Powell press conference. We'll be monitoring the Fed decisions like we always do. Interestingly enough, the market has run, stock market, crypto, Bitcoin, Ethereum, without the Fed's help, right? We've still been a relatively tight stance from a quantitative and Fed standpoint. I know they've been doing some sort of backdoor purchasing of treasuries and things of that nature, but the rates are still high, and yet the market's running anyway. So there's sort of a question in my mind, like, do we necessarily need the Fed for the market to continue to be bullish? I don't think so. But remember, the Fed is going to cut rates. The current rate is higher than they even want it to be. They want to lower it to like 2.5%. That's their target. So it's higher than they want it to be. It's higher than the American people want it to be. It's certainly higher than what Trump wants it to be. So it's going to get cut. I don't know if it gets cut tomorrow. I don't think that it's going to be cut tomorrow because there's still, some uncertainty around these tariffs, and that's been kind of Powell's talking point. Is we don't know what's going to happen. Is are tariffs going to reignite inflation, and are we going to relive that bout of inflation we had after COVID, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think any of that's going to happen, but he's worried about that, and there still hasn't been enough finality and resolution around these tariffs for him to say, all right, tariffs didn't really cause too much inflation. We're going to cut these rates. So, yeah, July, unlikely to happen. There is no meeting in August, so that then leaves us to September. But I've been kind of saying, hey, that would be in line with last year. No rate cut, no rate cut, no rate cut, and then September hits and they do jumbo cuts. So we'll see if this year plays out in a similar fashion when they start cutting rates in September. And that would coincide with what you expect to be a massive end of the year run on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and altcoins anyway.
Yeah, and here's Trueflation data. The year-to-date high for inflation was when Trump took office. It was 3%. The year-to-date low is 1.22%. And now it's been sitting at 2.01% or around 2% now for several looks like weeks now. So pretty much flatlined around this 2% level. And hopefully we can stay in there. This was the moving target. And this is why they don't cut rates, because the government never tells you the truth anyways. The reported data is 2.7% inflation, which hasn't been the case for several months now. So since like January or February. Usually they're on a 45-day delay. Apparently the government is on a multi-month delay now on their readings versus what Trueflation data has been. And I'll tell you what, you're like, well, why do you trust Trueflation over government data? Well, the Trueflation data has been much more accurate compared to what you're seeing in the actual housing market to what Trueflation is saying, what you're seeing when you go to the grocery store to what Trueflation is saying. Trueflation has way more data points, thousands of data points. The government's looking at less than 100 data points. So
this is real. This
is real data, real-time data, no lags, no politics, no government nonsense, a bunch of overpaid people, statisticians over in the government. And I think this is just the movement, too, of just how bloated government entities are and how overpaid they are for what they actually produce. Here's Trueflation, who is a Web3 company with like 10 people working on it, raised a couple $1 million, producing way better live data sets. Thomas Lee, CNBC, Anthony Pompliano uses this. They don't use government data, and that's for a reason.
Well, the reality is that the Fed can sort of make up whatever story they want. I mean, the data is the data, but they can always say, well, we're worried about what's going to happen next month, right? We're worried that what these tariffs are going to do to inflation. Inflation might be low today, but these tariffs or whatever other Trump policy that we may not approve of is going to potentially reignite inflation, and therefore we need to stand pat. The truth of the matter, too, is the labor market's been okay. I mean, it hasn't been good by any stretch of the imagination, but it hasn't been catastrophically bad either. So they have kind of room. They do have room from a labor market standpoint, which is their mandate is full employment, to basically wait and see. And so they're in wait and see mode. But if you talked to me last summer, I probably would have been in more of a tizzy over it. But we've seen the markets just go bananas anyway, and so I don't think it really matters what the Fed does tomorrow. It's more like, do we continue to see Bitmine, and do we continue to see MicroStrategy? You continue to see Wall Street generally just buy up tons of crypto and tons of Bitcoin, tons of Ethereum. If they keep on this trajectory, we're good. We're good. Let's see what the next Ethereum company coming online is going to do. I think one just came out saying they were going to buy $2 billion worth. So, I mean, it just goes on and on. So the Fed story, concerns me a little bit less now than maybe it would have, 3 or 4 months ago. But I'm not expecting a cut, and it's just, at that point, we got to look at September.
Yeah, so I think we kind of covered a lot of things there. Make sure to hit that like, share, and subscribe button, retweet this, and leave a comment in the comment section below with your wallet address for a chance to win the daily $10 giveaway. I think that's it, and I'll let you see us out.
Yeah, we have. I think we already have someone who won as far as I'm concerned, because he's the only guy that dropped his wallet. So shout out to Crypto. Good work, buddy, and I appreciate you asking your follow-up question about Surf. See, that's genuine interest. Someone's watching the stream, getting interest in what we have to say. This is how we grow the community, guys. This is how we grow this thing into that 100 million market cap and beyond monster that we all expect Surf to go to. So appreciate you guys jumping on it. I'll be back tomorrow with another live stream, and until then, we'll see you on the beach.